everyone, this is Neha Tulsyan from Crescentcreation. Welcome to another video on my YouTube channel. I'm so glad you're joining me today. In this video, I'm going to show you how I created this beautiful slimline card using some new and old lawn fawn products. The good part about this card is that you can create it for any occasion. Here I have laid out my scene using the stamps, and now I am stamping the images on Nina Solo White 80-pound cardstock. I'm using different inks from Lawn Fawn Pottery Studio Cube Pack. I'm using Crunchy Leaf ink to stamp the critters and the delivery boxes. I'm using River Rock to stamp the houses and the gift boxes. And lastly, using the lightest color, that's the jellyfish color, to stamp the mouse. I really liked the no line coloring effect that I got in my last video. And to get the same kind of effect, I'm using 3 different ink pads to stamp these images. Once the images are stamped, I'll keep them aside. And now I'll work on my background. I die cut this white panel from the small slimline with lift the flaps die from Lawn Fawn. And now I'm using one of my hillside stencils from Lawn Fawn and inking up the hill using cracked pistachio distress oxide ink. I'm using my VR Memory Keeper's mini magnetic cutting mat and ruler set to hold my background panel and the stencil together. Here I'm inking up a second hill just above the first one um, using another stencil from the same hillside stencil set. And this is how it looks once all done. Now using the mini cloud stencil from my favorite things, I'm inking up the sky and I'm using tumbled glass distress oxide ink here. I'll keep changing my stencil side and ink up the whole panel to create the sky. I have been really liking this magnetic cutting mat and ruler from VR Memory Keepers. It holds your project down pretty firmly while you do your inking or cutting or whatever you want to do on this mat. It comes in different sizes, so you can choose as per your requirement which size you want. But I like this mini size, small and easy to move and store, and it's perfect for card making. Here I have removed the cloud stencil and just inking up the bottom panel just above the hill. And once that's done, this is how my background panel looks. Wow, I'm not able to create words today. Now let's move on to coloring our images. The ink pads I used to stamp these images are all alcohol marker friendly. So I'm using my Copic markers to color all these images. For my first image, I'm using E57, E55 and E31 Copic markers. And I'm coloring the image twice to get a better blend. Now I'll stamp the arrow image on this box using Crunchy Leaf ink. My next image, the tree, I'm using E59 and E57 Copic markers, adding the shadows using E59 and blending it out using E57. The green part of the tree, I'm using G29, G17 and G07 Copic markers. G29 being my darkest color, blended that out using G17, and lastly used G07 as my highlight color. Now for my mouse, I'm using some warm gray markers. Using W6 as my darkest color, I'm adding shadows to the mouse. Then blending those shadow areas and bringing the color a little bit more in using W5. Used W3 to blend W5 and lastly used W1 as my lightest color and blended everything out. I used R20 for the inside of the ears and for the tummy area. Now using my jelly roll pen, I am adding back the facial features to bring the mouse to life. For the fox, I'm using some E markers. I'm using E08, E17, E15 and E13 Copic markers. And here you can see me adding a second layer on the fox using all the same markers. I like to add a second layer of color to all my images while coloring with Copics. So I'm really happy with the blend. For the lighter parts of the skin, I'm using E13 and E11 Copic markers. And here I'm using my black pen and adding the facial features. I cannot recommend this enough. This one little step of adding the eyes and rest of the facial features just brings this critters to life. For my bear here, I'm using E39 as my darkest color, blending it out and pulling the color in using E37, then blended that out using E35 and using E33 as my lightest color, blended everything out. For the lighter areas, I'm using E31 and E30 Copic markers. My next step, I die cut these balloons using outside in stitched balloon stackables die from Fawn out of white cardstock. And now I'm inking them up using Distress Oxide inks. I used ripe persimmon, abandoned coral, blue sketch ink, and also wilted violet Distress Oxide inks. The die also cuts the bows and the string. I inked those two with the same colors. Now that everything is ready, it's time to assemble our card. But how can I forget? I had a little boo-boo there, which I fixed off camera by inking up another panel. I usually do not like to redo things, but for this one, I just didn't have any way to hide that big boo-boo. So I redid my whole panel and I have kept that aside. Maybe I'll be able to use it for some other project. Here I've set my whole scene and now I'll start gluing down the images using liquid glue, and some places I'll use my foam tape. So the idea behind this card is like these critters are bringing either the boxes, they are moving the boxes or bringing gifts in these boxes, and delivering them with the balloons. You can call them one of a kind delivery guys or movers or packers. So the fox is holding one box, and the mouse here got very excited and just came all by himself. And here I decided not to add the balloon but just the string to show that the scene is bigger than the card. It just helps the scene look a little more realistic. And now for my bear, I really wanted him to hold the open box image. So for him, the box opened mid-air and now he's dropping these gift boxes that's in that delivery box, um, all in the neighborhood. And to finish off the scene, I added those houses at the bottom of the panel, um, just on the hills that we inked using cracked pistachio and the hillside stencils from Lawn Fawn. And that kind of sums up my whole scene. And since we cannot exactly tell what these critters are doing, either they are delivering the boxes or they are delivering gifts, you can use this for either of the occasion. You can use it as a birthday card or a housewarming card or even a moving card, whichever you decide to add the sentiment. And since I could not decide what occasion I wanted this card for, I just used a very generic sentiment for the outside and left the inside completely empty. I can decorate the inside later depending on whom I want to send this card to. Gluing down last few pieces here, added foam tape for the house in the front, down the tree and the other house using some liquid glue. The liquid glue I'm using here is from Burley Arts. It's one of my favorites glue currently. It dries quick, clear and matte finish, and I'm in love with it. Matting the front panel by adding a layer of blue jay cardstock at the back of the front panel. I'm leaving a very thin border on all sides. I like to glue my card panel to the corner of the cardstock and then trim off the excess using my guillotine trimmer. I prefer layering the panels in this way. I tend to make less mistakes. And now I'll glue this onto a 3.5 by 8 inches slimline card base that I made using Nina Solo White 110-pound cardstock. Here I'm heat embossing my sentiment, flying by to say on blue jay cardstock. I prepped the area with anti-static tool and now I am stamping it using clear ink from Simon Says Stamp. And since I'm using my Misty stamping tool, I can stamp it twice to get a crisp image. Once I'm happy with the stamping, I'll remove the cardstock and pour some white embossing powder and then heat set it using my heat tool. Now I'm trimming the sentiment strip using my paper trimmer, and I'm using another sheet as the guide to where the trimmer will cut the strip. Learned this trick from Jennifer McGuire's video, and this is one of the helpful tips. I always struggle while cutting down the strips, but this is Really a lifesaver. Cutting a fishtail on one end using my scissors and gluing it down using some foam tape. For finishing touches, added some white highlights to all the images and balloons on this card. That's it, my card is all done. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more crafty videos. Here are a few more videos that you might like to watch. Thank you for visiting. Have a nice day.